Königssee, Bavaria, round 7 of the 2man FIBT Bobsleigh World Cup. We are in the heart of Bavaria, in Germany's and the world's oldest artificial iced track. Hello everybody, I'm Martin Haven. Sitting alongside me is Olympic champion bobsledder from Canada, Kaylee Humphries. Kaylee, you raced on this track yesterday in very similar snowy conditions, but it didn't stop the cream rising to the top, and that's been the same in the men's race.
Yeah, and hopefully it stays that way. I mean, the track's working extremely hard in order to make sure that it's fair for everybody.
Well, like in the women's race, the lower labyrinth caught out the Aussies here. He spent zigging when he should have zagged. High-speed crash, they're doing close on 80 miles an hour. Good news is that he and Ben Lisson got out of the sled okay, but they're going to be pretty bruised for tomorrow. Among the fast front runners are expected to be the junior world champion in 2 and 4-man, Francesco Friedrich, who won last week on home ice in Altenburg. He had a good run here to 4th place, could still threaten for the win.
He definitely could. I mean, he started off first, and in snowy conditions, that's hard to take, and hopefully he'll have a good second run.
What about Alexander Zubkov, the Russian? You can never count him out.
No, never. He's got experience, great start. I mean, he's always one of the top to watch out for.
Top 3 covered by under 0.2 of a second. Oskars Melbardis and Damas Juskins are the fastest starting crew in men's bobsleigh, Kaylee. But even that wasn't enough.
No, it wasn't, but the race is extremely close. They're only 500ths behind the leaders, Lyndon Rush and Jesse Lumsden, so anything is possible this run, and it's going to come down to consistency. He's still a young pilot, though, so we'll see what he can do.
Well, Melbardis has never won a race as a driver. I'm not too sure he's won as a brakeman either. Lyndon Rush of Canada is the man that stands between him and a first win. And Kaylee Humphries, your teammate, ahead by 0.05 of a second. That's less than the blink of an eye.
Yeah, it's really close, tight racing here, as it is every year, which just makes it that much more exciting. And it's going to come down to consistency and start times and good runs.
Well, the short track really helps bunch up the field. Look how close they are. Top 7 sleds could all threaten for medals, if maybe not for overall honours. But one mistake could drop you way down the order. The gaps are so tiny. 100th here, 200ths there. The biggest of the gaps in the field is probably between 2nd and 3rd place, which is almost 1/10 of a second. 20 sleds from our field of 31 go through into the second heat. So Patrice Savelle of Monaco there in 20th place makes it by the skin of his teeth, just 0.03 of a second slower, and he would have been, well, 400 slower, he'd have been out, and the other 2 guys behind him would have been in. 31 started, all did complete the course, including the Aussies who crashed. They did cross the finish line, but didn't make a second heat. So a third of the field have been cut. Lyndon Rush and Jesse Lumsden making final preparations to the Canada 1 sled, just checking those runners for any tiny imperfections. Kaylee, you want them to be mirror smooth for minimum drag.
You definitely do. You want them to basically glide, and you should be able to see yourself in them. Any little scratch, nick or dent in them, you know, could be the difference of 100th of a second, and so you really try and polish them up and make them as fast as possible.
Steve Holcomb there with his coaches on the right, Brian Scheinman, Mike Kahn, and on the left, ex-US coach and now the head of competition here in the FIBT. And you can see Zubkov and his crew practicing, getting that timing right.
That's definitely a crucial part, more so in 4-man than in 2-man, but definitely making sure that you're both hitting that sled at the same time to get the most out of the velocity, and timing at the beginning is critical.
Top 20 from Heat 1 go in reverse order of their performance. So we go last to fast. The leader, Lyndon Rush, will go last on the ice. Whether that means he has better or worse conditions, only the weather will tell us, and only time will inform us of that decision. So we get ready for the second and deciding heat, World Cup number 7 of 9 of the season. This is the final third of the year now. Patrice Savelle of Monaco, 20th in Heat 1, 0.94 of a second off the race lead, with Boris Vain behind him. First-time brakeman Boris. He's not slid in the World Cup before. 2 new guys coming in for Monaco this weekend. You can see Boris is a big, strong guy. Olympic champion Kaylee Humphries watching the action with me here, and Kaylee, you've got to have more than power. It's about form and technique to get that power into the sled.
It definitely is. I mean, you can have all the power and speed in the world, but if you don't have the form and technique to be able to translate it properly, you know, you just end up wasting a lot. And I mean, speed's also very, very critical, and it's a combination of both that really, that's what gets you the best starts in the world.
Patrice Savelle in the World Championships in 2004 took 4th place on the Königssee track. He hasn't forgotten how to drive overnight, but the start is what is letting him down a little.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in 04, he had a much better start, much closer to the field, and that allows him to really utilize the experience that he's got in the driving form. He knows how to drive. He's proven it time and time again. He's been around for a long time on tour. I mean, this run proves it right here. He's having a really, really nice run. Just when you're, you know, 2 or 3 tenths behind at the start, especially on this short track, it's very hard to come back from.
Well, he perhaps has had the best ice that anybody has had so far, because they've been sweeping it for the last 5 minutes to try and get the loose snow away. That was just 0.07 of a second slower than his first heat, and he will stay in the top 20. Whether he will pick up a position or not remains to be seen. A couple hundred slower at the start, and for his new brakeman, day 1 of learning the technique of being a brakeman.
And that definitely takes time and experience as well. So a little bit of, you know, everything kind of going on in this run, but the start's critical, and the more starts and the more World Cups you get, the more confident you are, and the better that technique is, and you're able to translate that power that you do have.
Second last of our starters was Dorin Alexandru Grigore of Romania. He drove some really nice smooth lines to make it into the field in 19th place.
He definitely did. As you can see there, he's got a bit of duct tape kind of holding up the remainder of his sled. And equipment's a big part. It's one of 3 things that you really need in order to really win a race. But for him to get a second run, especially in this big, heavy, competitive field, that's awesome. And that's got to feel really good from him.
Yeah, real boost for a tiny nation. Started 5:11, 5:12 in the second heat.
Very consistent starts. You know, hopefully he can have another run like he did first run, and we'll see. Hopefully he can move up 1 or 2 more spots.
Graphics on the bottom right show you Monaco as our race leader. The race leader will always be the top graphic. In the green, Romania means he's in front at the moment. 1500s up, in fact.
He had the very nice S's, 1, 2, 3 into 4, and came dead straight out of S4 down into that straightaway. He actually did that much better than Patrice, so it doesn't surprise me that he's down and in the green.
He's having a nice run here. 28 years old, but he's been sliding a lot less than the Monegasque who leads the race after heat 1. Giving away a decade of experience. 50.93 slide puts him into the lead of the race.
2 very nice, consistent runs. They've got to be happy with that, and as you can see on their face, they are. That's extremely exciting for such a young pilot and crew, and you know, definitely a confidence boost from Altenberg last week into this week, and hopefully that'll continue as the rest of the season pans out.
Well, you saw them being congratulated by driver Nicolai Estrati. That's him in the black jacket and with the backpack. Still trying to recover from a broken wrist. He fell from a motorcycle in Lake Placid, and there is Dorin Alexandru, who leads the race for Romania. Next up, David Kupchik, another more experienced pilot. He's got Pavel Moroz on the back of the sled. Moroz, incidentally, means cold in Polish, I'm told. Maybe our camera crew can tell us otherwise. Well, it's a really well-presented outfit. 5:14 start first heat. Pavel runs it almost down to the second flat section. 5:19. Might have lost a bit of velocity by running over far there, Kaylee.
Possibly. I mean, that's always the risk that you're going to take. You run it a little bit farther, and maybe the sled gets away from you. Depends on how fast, you know, of an athlete you are. At the same time, with the snowy conditions, you know, sometimes running it far is an advantage.
They were 800s in front of Romania after the first heat. Same speed into the Kreisel, but they're in the red. Can he dig himself out of this hole? Gap is still at 400ths of a second. These are tiny margins we're talking about.
Very tiny margins. Had a really nice tabletop exit of Kreisel. Still in the red, though, 800ths. I don't know. I think he's going to have lost a spot to Romania.
He may well do. He does. 900ths of a second. Do you know, the Romanians just are so excited about this sport. The men, the women, They're just absolutely like crackerjacks, bouncing up and down with every achievement.
They are. They give a lot. I mean, seeing what they travel in, and they've got their car with their tiny little trailer, towing it in the back. They just love the sport. They're very passionate about it, and they give anything just to be out and sliding. So to be able to see them succeed in all the hard work and effort that they put in is really exciting. I'm very happy for them.
It's always nice to see them parked to the big Eurotech motor trailer that hauls your sleds around.
Yes, very different extremes for sure.
Very different extremes indeed. Next up, John Jackson with rookie brakeman Craig Pickering. Athletics fans will know his name very well, one of Britain's top 100-metre sprinters. First ever start was the first heat. This is his second ever start in a bobsleigh and wriggles himself back in 5:02 getaway. Well, we talk about the conversion from track and field to bobsledding. Track and field, you don't ever push anything, so that's a major difference. And what you require your legs and your upper body to do are totally different.
Yeah, track and field, we get a lot of athletes from track and field, as you saw with the American girls, as you see from many sports. They're definitely a good bunch of athletes that we recruit from, but as you said, it doesn't exactly translate. Pushing something that weighs 200 kilos versus your own body weight, it takes time in order to really be able to utilize every little bit that you've got. But I mean, that just comes with experience, and this is step one for him.
Oh, just slipping behind the Romanians. He was 2/10 up. Is he going to be in front? No, just behind. 51.17 slide for John Jackson and Craig Pickering. So the British sled drops to joint third place with Patrice Sabel of Monaco. Now, many times British and Monegasque sleds have been very close together, with Lee Johnson-Ang with John Jackson driving. You can see there Paula Walker at the front, Kelly Denyer at the back, who raced in the women's race yesterday, helping out. Tried to use the height there in echo.
He does. He comes out, kind of falls out of the corner, and you just see him drift over to that one wall, the right-hand wall on his side, per se. And, you know, it starts to go uphill there, and any little tap on any of those walls, just tenths of a second, just melt away.
Italy's Simone Bertazzo with Francesco Costa behind him in the Italy 1 sled. They were tied for 16th spot in Heat 1 with John Jackson of Great Britain. Jacko has slipped behind our current leader, Dorin Grigore of Romania. The Italians stay in front. The gaps here are absolutely tiny. 1/10 of a second just between Italy and Romania.
5-second flat again. Not the strongest start we've seen, and on this track that makes a big difference, but he knows how to drive, and we'll see what he can do on this run.
Nice exit through the S's, but a little wriggly onto the straightaway.
A few little wiggles and niggles down that straightaway, trying to straighten it out and not cause a skid. But again, all those little tiny steers on this track, there's not much you can do to gain. Any time you can gain or any speed you can gain comes from the start. That's it. All those little steers, all those little hits, it just melts the rest of your time away, and you can really only make the sled go slower.
Gap from 1400ths down to 100th of a second. He didn't have the speed of the Romanians into the Kreisel. He's going down as well. He is. The Romanians celebrate again. A 51.12 slide. So the first couple of sleds out of the starting shed may well have had slightly less snow on the track. You said it earlier, Kaylee Humphries. The more the snow falls, the more it's going to lay in the track. But whatever, Dorin Grigore of Romania put in a great drive.
He did. He had two very, very consistent runs. As you can see here with the Italians, I mean, strong start. They're both really good athletes. 5-second start here, which is what this one comes down to. Simone jumps in, arms go in, brakeman grabs the little rope thing, pulls the push bar down. Sometimes it's the brakeman that does that job, sometimes it's the pilot that'll hit it. Again, every sled is different.
Next up for the USA, Nick Cunningham, and ringing the changes, he's got Justin Olsen from the night train, the USA 1 4-man crew on the back of a 2-man sled. What they're trying to do is get all the US athletes the biggest possible start they can find. Rookie Cunningham, first time ever at this track this week.
Down and in quick. Awesome experience from Justin Olsen in the back. Nick Cunningham really setting himself up. You want to be able to jump in that sled and use whatever you have at the start and get in and down and quick to really maximize.
Well, he had a good top part of the track in Heat 1 and had a little bit of a disappointing time on the bend away, as it's called by the Americans, the curving straight. Got a better run that time and good speed, 120.1.
Definitely does. He's having a great run. Came out of S4 nicely, controlled that straightaway really nice, and had a great looking Kreisel. This is definitely, you know, the run he would have hoped for in run 1, but this is a really great run so far.
Gaps come down from 3/10 at the end of the straightaway to 1200s and 300s of a second at the line. Wow, the Romanians enjoyed their time in the sun. They move up from 19th by 3 spots, and there may be more scalps to come, but for the moment it's Nick Cunningham of the USA that has the lead here in Bavaria.
Comes into Kreisel here, and you just see him. It just looks like one smooth, solid line. That's what it should look like. And you don't want to see any major waves. Sometimes the pilots have to steer through the pressure a little bit hard to get that smooth line. So a tiny wave isn't a big deal either. And we'll see what the top guys can do. But definitely, that was very nice by Nick Cunningham.
14 sleds remain here in Bavaria. Martin Haven and Olympic champion Kaylee Humphries watching the action with you. This is Alexander Kazyanov of Russia, the Russia 2 driver. And he has got Maxim Belugin behind him. He is the 3rd placed of our 3 Russian sleds, with Alexander Zubkov challenging for a win. We'll see him later. Well, the 501 getaway, he's only had a couple of World Cup races this season. The Russians have been shuffling around with him and Dmitry Abramovich. Pretty decent run onto the straight, Kaylee, but just a little rattlier than he might have liked.
Yeah, a few little wiggles and niggles here. He's working, you know, decently hard in order to get that nice line, which isn't what you want to see, but he's keeping it straight and overall, you know, maintaining the speed and the start that he gave it at the top, which is, you know, all you can hope for.
Building a gap over Nick Cunningham. He was 200s up at the start. That's now nearly 0.2 of a second, and at the line, it's a 1/4 second. So goodbye to the Americans either in the leader box. You saw almost a glimmer of a smile there from Coach Pierre Luders. That's a really big statement from him.
It definitely is. Any little smirk you can get from Pierre, if he doesn't look frowny face, you know he's happy.
Yeah.
Comes across there, light tap on the left. I mean, that's minor, really, considering, you know, what can happen. And to come out of there and really have no tap, I mean, I didn't do it all week. It's extremely hard. So you take those little bumps, and yeah, as long as you're letting the sled fly and run on its own, that's all you can do.
25-year-old rookie Alexei Stulnev for Russia, the man from Pavlovsk. 2nd in the Junior Worlds in 2-man last year. Made his World Cup debut this year at Winterberg. Started sliding in the Olympic season 09-10, and behind him is the man mountain that is Alexei Voyevoda. And even from that shot, he looks twice as wide as his driver. Just look at the man in the back when he tries to get in.
You can see him, his shoulders, world arm wrestling champion, trying to get those arms in that sled. He is a beast, and first World Cup back. It's great to have him back on tour. Really exciting to see for the Russian program, and you know it's only going to get that much stronger with somebody like that on your team.
Great bit of video online posted by the Sochi people that Voyevoda, who lives in the area, went down to visit the bobsleigh track and pushed off Pierre Luders in a sled. They got down to the bottom. Pierre said, "I've never come off the top here as fast as that." 120.7, top speed into the Kreisel. It's a good-looking run. Stulnev's got lots of potential. Still holds the lead by nearly 2/10. And that's a good run, 50.72 slide now. Still a couple of tenths slower nearly than the first heat, so sensing maybe the track's not quite as quick as it would have been earlier on.
No, I think you're just going to get that in general. Snow falling, track's trying to clear it. The track crew sweeping mad to try and get it out of the grooves, but unfortunately that's weather, and there's not much you can do about it. Comes around the straightaway, little bit of a sideways skid there, trying to control it. Nothing major, but that would have been the couple tenths difference for sure.
Well, there is Alexei Stulnev and his wife Augustelneva racing in the women's competition for Russia. Next up, Justin Cripps, Canada 3 with Lascelles Brown, a former brakeman on the front and a current brakeman for Canada on the back. Formerly Jamaican, Canadian, Monaco, and now back to Canada, King.
And King is still a part of Linden's 4-man crew. We're really just trying to figure out, you know, the best teams for World Championships. And like the Americans, you know, you shuffle your top guys around to give the teams the best possible chance they can. Cripps, a very, you know, new pilot, first World Cup tour. He's still only year 3. This is his 3rd year as a pilot ever, so still got a lot of room to grow, but an 84 start, that's huge from King and Cripps. And, you know, they can, as Cripps learns and continues to grow as a pilot, I mean, you're just going to see him get closer and closer to the top each and every time.
Well, firing themselves off at the top of the hill with such speed. Of course, that means you've got to recalibrate your thinking because you're coming into all those early corners much quicker than you might have been in training.
Definitely are, but this run is much better than first run from Cripps driving-wise. Really nice tabletops, great exit there out of Echo Wand.
Still in front, 1600s is down to a 10th, but he takes the lead. He will hold a top 10 finish. Yeah, Justin Cripps, first time at all these tracks in Europe, and so far, his best results, 12th in Whistler, 12th in Winterberg. Of course, he knows one really intimately, never seen the other before. He's already on for a top 12 here.
Yeah, this is his first time at this track. So, I mean, 6 runs trying to do 2-man and 4-man before race day. I mean, it comes down to the wire and pressure's on for Justin. Struggled a little bit getting in. I'm sure his foot got caught on his bungee ropes, his steering ropes trying to get in. But it, you know, that's what happens when you're trying to cram 2 big guys into a tiny little space. Sometimes things just get caught up.
Well, next up, USA 2, Corey Butner and Johnny Quinn. And again, the Americans shuffling around their driving and braking armada to try and produce the fastest 2-man combinations on all 3 sleds.
The starts are so important, especially on this track. But in general, in our sport, we're seeing the starts be more and more crucial and critical. And so you're going to see a lot of teams that are going to try and shuffle around. And, you know, Canada 1 in the 4-man crews or USA 1, all those guys are going to have the fastest starts. But in the 2-mans, if you can use your top guys, you know, they need to be utilized to really get everybody the fastest start possible.
Yeah, you got a choice of 9 brakeman. Makes sense to use the fast 3, doesn't it?
It definitely does.
Well, 1500s behind. He got in behind Cripps and has not been able to find the pace. 120.5, just a whisker quicker than our current leader, Canada 3. Oh, and I'm afraid that might have just put him on the back foot. He's second at the moment, could drop a couple of spots here.
Yeah, I think we're going to continue to see him lose. Came out of S4 a little bit rough, had a bit of a skid, and a few little wiggles all the way down the straightaway, and those tabletops were not smooth.
Oh, down to 700s. Actually, despite that problem in the lower labyrinth there, he almost caught Justin Cripps, but not quite. Corey Butner, high school basketball player. Well, that was a little rough.
Comes into S4 here. A little bit rough transition from 3 to 4. You see him come off of S4. Again, in those tabletops, the hits and the skid sideways, it just, that kills your time and speed into the flatter section and then into the uphill section. You really got to be able to transition those smoothly and take the speed with you.
Into the top 10 here in Königssee, Bavaria. And 10th and first were 2 Canadian sleds, Canada 1 and Canada 2. This is Chris Spring, Neville Wright on the back of the sled. First time that Neville has braked for Chris Spring.
He'll be braking for him in the 4-man as well.
Yeah, Coach Tom Delahunty shuffling the teams around, getting the fastest guys on the back. And a 497 getaway. They started 495 in their first heat as well, so that's working well.
It is Canada versus Canada. This is really great for our program, is to see 2 young up-and-coming pilots, you know, battling it out for top 10 finishes. We got 3 sleds so far in top 10. That's awesome to see. Not a great straightaway, hitting that left wall and just kind of bouncing off. You got the front bunks hitting the back bunks, and they just kind of ping-pong the rest of the way down.
400s behind at the start, 600s behind at the exit of the Kreisel, 800s in the second. He could still pull this back if he gets a good run through the bottom of this track.
He could. Anything's possible in this last uphill section. 700ths now. He's got 2 more corners left. It'll be really close.
Very close indeed to the 100th. 600ths of a second behind. 50.81 and a 50.66 slide for Justin Cripps. Overturns the advantage that Chris Spring had in the first heat. Spring's big day in the 2-man this year so far has been in Whistler, where he finished a great 5th position.
I mean, Spring definitely started behind Cripps on both of those runs. They had pretty equal run times and speeds to come down. That start difference was the difference at the bottom. But, you know, not the greatest drive from Chris Spring on that one.
Firmly into the top 10 here in Königssee, and last week's winner at home in Saxony on the track at Altenburg, Thomas Florschutz, is trying to find a way of getting into the medals with Kevin Kuska. In the 2-man race, in fact, he was tied for the win with fellow Saxon Francesco Friedrich. Double delight for the Altenburg crowd. Hard to see either of them winning here. Well, if you want a good brakeman to style yourself on rookies, the man on the back of this sled, Kevin Kuska, is among the very greatest. A 4:89 start. That's a big, big push.
That definitely is better than we saw in the first run, for sure.
Well, they've got a tiny advantage over Corey Butner from the first heat of just 700ths of a second, of Justin Cripps, rather, of 1400ths, but just starting to add to that. Good speed, 121.3, fastest we've seen into the Kreisel.
Great run from Thomas so far. Really utilizing that advantage of what he had at the start, and I mean, at this point it's his to lose.
Well, again, a couple of exits down there in those last couple of corners were a little off, and that's what it looked like in heat 1. He just didn't quite have the timing right. First heat, 50.38. Second heat, 50.38. Consistent, but still neither were as good as he could give, I don't think.
No, we're not used to seeing this. We're used to seeing him near the start. He, as he comes out of there in S4, dead straight. Those runners aren't moving, tucked in their aerodynamics, the top, and you see it before Kreisley's got the fastest speeds.
He has not got the bottom of the track hooked up properly. That's where he's giving it away. Kevin Kuska there helped him to a great start, but you saw him banging the cowling in disgust when René Spies told him their downtime. Florschutz leads, but there are still 8 sleds to come. Among them are 2 Swiss. This is Rico Pater, the first of them. Simon Friedli on the back of the Swiss 2 sled. See him keeping the sled moving on the ice, Kaylee. That's to avoid any chance of frost, just giving it a tiny little bit of stiction to the ice. You want to make sure nothing is adding to the friction.
It definitely does. You want to kind of heat up those grooves a little bit, have the runners kind of melt the ice. It just allows it to shoot out when you explode off the block that little bit faster.
Of course, artificially heating your runners is very, very illegal, but just keeping it moving helps to reduce friction. First start, 5-0, 5:02 second getaway. Well, he sat down a 10th back. Kaylee, he's 2 tenths back going into the S's.
Late tap there on the left-hand side. He's going to come across, hit a couple times. Those 2 taps right there before you enter, you see those are mandatory, but anything before that and out of the S's you don't want to see.
Okay, Florschutz is going to pick up at least 1 place here. He's gone from a 10th down to 2 tenths down to 3 tenths down, a third of a second back. This will be the better part of half a second at the line. Although the Swiss sled did pick up speed at the bottom, so he stops the rot. He might close down to 2 tenths maybe. Yeah, a little bit off, 50.68 slide, but that itself was 3 tenths slower than Florschutz managed. So that was the drive of Florschutz and the mistakes of Rico Pater that swapped them around.
Comes out, hits the wall there, it just pushes him across, and then he's just going to kind of ping-pong off that other next wall. I mean, you saw Florschutz comes through dead straight, not hitting a wall or touching, and that's how you gain speed, especially before this bottom section. You really got to do everything you can. You see him ducking there just before the finish line, get any little tiny advantage aerodynamically that you can possibly get, and it just wasn't enough. Thomas had a great run.
Thomas Florschutz leads for Germany. Manny Mahata next up with the giant Marco Hubenbecker behind him. He is the tallest brakeman. There is a Mahata skids. Can he get in? Yes, he does. 5.03. Well, they started 5.04 in the first heat, but what about the speed in the first corner? 42.6 is average at best.
5.03, I mean, good push time, but I think velocity-wise, that's what you're going to lose when you have those little trip-ups, which sometimes happen. You're trying to get in something moving extremely fast with everything you got.
Well, he's hauling on the sled to pull himself in, and Newton tells us if he's pulling the sled back, it's slowing it down.
Slowing it down, and so he's just trying to get in at that point, and...
Good speed, 1:21.7. No one quicker into the Kreisel, and that was the story of his first heat as well. He's close to 1400ths to a tenth. He might still overhaul Thomas Florschutz to the 100th of a second. 500ths back.
Manny knows how to drive this track. He got it back down to 500ths of a second. One more corner, I have no doubt he would have continued to gain on Thomas on that one, but it makes it hard.
Well, watch the driver.
Pushing like nobody's business from both these guys, really trying to get in, and you see him go and get in, and his foot just nicks the top of the cowling of that sled, and he kind of ends up doing the splits on the sled and just trying to get everything in, every part in, and grab those ropes, because as soon as you come out of those grooves, any tiny little movement can cause any bit of sideways skid, which you don't want.
Thomas Florschutz leads for Germany. Our second sixth-place sled. No, I'm not drunk yet. This is Manny Mahata and Beat Hefti were tied for sixth position. Hefti, newly crowned Swiss champion, won the title last week in St. Moritz, which is why he wasn't racing in Altenburg. Jörg Egger behind him. Second quickest start in the first heat, Kaylee Humphries, 4.87 seconds. Can they go quicker? Not quite.
Not quite, but two still very, very strong starts from Hefti and Jörg.
Well, Hefti is a brakeman behind Martin Annan, and Ivo Rugg was regarded as one of the greatest in the business, and he hasn't slowed down much as he's become a driver. 800ths of a second is his lead, but it's down from 13 at the start, and that extra tap perhaps might cost him. Full kilometre now down on Manny Mahata and Thomas Florschutz.
It's going to come down to the wire here. Only 400ths up still. This is close racing.
The Swiss sled, the Citius sled, produced great speed at the bottom. Tiny tap on the wall, he's behind.
200ths is going to come down to this last corner, and I think Thomas has him.
Yes, he does, and the crowd sensed it as well. 50.57 slide, 100
he
slower.
He even fell behind Mahata.
Yep,
Mahata
100.
moves up 1/100th of a second.
Yep, they were tied, and Mahata, despite that slip at the start, and being outstarted by Hefti, 4.89 to 5.03, got more out of the ice.
S3 into S4 there. Now we're in Echo Wand. Comes around here, drops out, and you see him just a light rub there on the wall. That was the difference of the 100th of a second right there.
In the background there, you can see Heinz-Harald Frentzen, ex-Grand Prix driver, who is watching the races, having just taken a trip down in a taxi bob before the start. Not at the sort of speed that these guys are going at, though. Kurt Tomasevich ramping up Stephen Langton and Stephen Holcomb as Thomas Florschutz and Kevin Kuska feel the need for more winter clothing. Let's see what the USA 1 sled can do.
Down in, again, a bit of a slow load, and you saw that push bar go down a bit late, but you don't want to make any fast movements, especially once you're out of those grooves. They end at 50 meters, and so every little tiny bit, again, is going to have to be slow to prevent that.
Well, one thing you'll notice from this shot is the snow has stopped, so the track will continue to get quicker and quicker. He is behind, though. 700s up at the start, 700s behind, coming down to the Kreisel. Not as good speed, 1:21 for the Germans.
1700s, he is falling farther and farther behind.
Yes, he is. He's gone from second to third to fourth place. This may not turn out to be a result he wants to remember. His worst finish is fifth. He is going to be in fourth place at the line with still 4 sleds to come. Well, now, from a driver who is used to tracks like Whistler, Lake Placid, Calgary in North America, and who comes from Salt Lake. Maybe a technical track like this, he's just not quite feeling the flow as he should do.
No, I don't think so, but Holcomb's an experienced pilot. He's been around for a while. He's definitely, you know, one of the top, always has been, always will be, and so we're not used to seeing him down here like this.
3 gold medals this season for Stephen Holcomb, but he won't add to that. Thomas Florschutz leads with 4 sleds still to come here in Bavaria. Francesco Friedrich of Germany, who won last week in Altenburg. He took his first ever World Cup victory. He started the season with bronze in Lake Placid, in Salt Lake and in Whistler in the 2-man. And the 4th race of his World Cup career in Altenburg, he claimed joint gold with our current leader Thomas Florschutz. Can they tie for the lead again? Look at that start, a 4.94. That's a good getaway.
It is. That's one of his advantages for sure, is the start. And you're seeing that more and more in our sport. The start is so critical and so important. And I think, you know, he's always going to have the start. Both Pilot and Brakeman are great, great athletes. And as he gains more and more experience, more time on World Cup, he's going to be one to consistently, you know, it's going to be hard to beat him.
121.2, Florschutz, the leader, had 121.3. The gap is a hair's breadth, just 0.03 of a second in it. Can he hold on? Still 3 sleds to come. This is by no means even guaranteeing a medal. From 300s to 300s to 300s, they are neck and neck and neck, and he wins that personal battle with his fellow Saxon by a 400th of a second margin, 50.51. But Cayley Humphreys, despite the lack of snow, 3/10 slower on that run than on his first heat.
Yeah, 3/10. I mean, it's hard to say. Lack of snow, but with sweeping, the track is going to start to deteriorate. It's fairly warm outside still, and the more sleds that go down, I mean, especially a 31 after first run, it just gets beat up. But generally, great run from Francesco.
Well, Francesco Friedrich may well have put himself in the top 3 with that. 3 sleds to go here in Königssee, Bavaria. Martin Haven and Olympic champion Cayley Humphreys. Cayley Humphreys, Alexander Zubkov with Dmitry Cherenkov. Not a man who likes to have things wrestled from his grasp. He's in a bronze medal position. He won't care what's behind. He's only thinking about what's in front.
He definitely is. He's going for gold each and every time, and you know that, you see that. And, you know, we'll see what he can do. He's got experience. He, along with all the other Russians, very few that start on the bar, and you see there, most of them run at it from the block. But it seems to be a strength of his. They're strong and competitive in the start.
Oh, what a skid into the wall.
And 2 big taps. That, unfortunately, 700ths, I think the next clock you're going to see, and it's just going to deteriorate the rest of the way down. Only 300ths now. When is that bleeding going to stop is more or less the question.
43.2 kilometers into the first speed trap is awful speed. He's 300s back, but surely even the genius of Zubkov can't find a medal out of this run.
I don't think so. I think those 2 that skid and the 2 taps right out of the grooves. Like I was saying before, those grooves end, and you got to be as gingerly and move as slow as possible in order to get it in. Otherwise, you know, you can cause a skid in those 2 taps like we just saw.
My goodness, he's coming back. 200ths of a second. Will he tie? No, he can't find it. Wow.
And that was very, very impressive.
Yeah.
To be the, you know, to go from 700s up to 300s back and hang on the rest of the way down. You know he drove better, because by, you know, the triple law that we say in bobsleigh, for every 10th at the start, you're 3/10 by the bottom. For him to stop that right away and, you know, start to come back, that's experience right there from Zubkov.
Zubkov again struggles to get his feet in. He's trying to grab the D-rings, but the skid has started.
And you see him try and turn those runners as fast as possible. And again, after he hits the first one, tries to turn it to minimize those hits and that damage. Unfortunately, damage was done, and that...
Well, Francesco Friedrich leads from Alexander Zubkov and Thomas Florschutz here at Berchtesgaden on the Königssee track. 2 sleds to go, and a chance here, maybe, for Oskars Melbardis to claim his first ever World Cup win. Starting his 3rd year this year as a driver. Damas Triskin's behind him. 4.84 first push. You've got to believe they'll go even quicker because the chance to win is a hair's breadth away from them. Oh, and he skids too.
And again, out of those grooves, something's going on. We saw it with Zubkov and again with Malbertus. I'm not sure what's going on there, but that's not typical for us to see that. And again, those two skids and that hit, it's going to come down. Unfortunately, Malbertus doesn't have the experience that Zubkov has, but so far, I mean, that was a very, very nice straightaway, so.
Well, I think his first trip down here may be the best drive I've ever seen him put in his career so far. 121.1, just a fraction behind Francesco Friedrich in terms of speed, but he still leads by 1600s coming into the lower labyrinth.
He's having a great run so far. As we saw first run, this is the most consistent and the best I've ever seen him driving, and that's great to see.
He takes the lead, 50.57, exactly the same run time as Alexander Zubkov, but his first round advantage puts him in front of Francesco Friedrich, guarantees himself his best ever career result, at least a silver medal. The question is, can the last remaining sled deny the Latvian gold? But Kaylee, this start,
you see him get in, I'm not sure. It's like he's in, he grabs the D-rings, and then push bar goes down at the same time. It's like the sled pushes him to one side. I'm not sure if there's just snow in one of the grooves, and so it's causing the sled to go one way. He would have had time to grab those D-rings, though.
Well, of course, to take the push bar in, you've got to release one D-ring. It's not like a steering wheel.
No,
you can only steer one way if you're only holding one D-ring.
And sometimes the brakeman pulls a bar, which it pulls the push bar down, instead of you, the pilot, having to remove a hand. Maybe that's it. I'm not sure what the Latvians have, but
going for gold, Lyndon Rush and Jesse Lumsden. A 4.93 start. That puts them immediately behind the Latvians, but he gets clean into the first corner with 43.6 kilometers an hour, and that is good momentum.
300's up already, and as long as he has a good, clean, solid, consistent run.
Well, again, the
nice
first heat was one of the best drives that Lyndon has put in this season, and he needs to dig deep for that again.
He does. Again, it's going to come down to consistency. So far, he's having a great, great run.
121.9, great speed. This is the final potential hazard. He gets nicely through the lower labyrinth. Now he surely can't give this away.
No, now it's just how much more can he gain?
He won in La Plagne in France. Can he take his second win of the season? He does, and what a margin of victory. 500's up in the first heat, nearly 4/10 of a second victory. 50.24 slide by Lyndon Rush. He has put in a really great pair of drives. Jesse Lumsden on the back, helping him to two great starts. Kaylee Humphries, that's a really impressive performance from the Canadian sled.
It definitely is. They started really strong. Lyndon drove exceptionally well. No issues on either run. He deserves that one here today. Olivia and Amelia, his daughters.
And two generations of Canadian coaches congratulating him there. Tom Delahunty in the Canadian jacket, and his predecessor, Ivo Ferriani there, the president of the FIBT.
Yeah, that was real impressive. Both of them dug deep in, and they busted out a big win here today.
Excellent stuff. And wow, I have to say, Oskars Malbardis again, two really impressive drives from him, and he is right on the brink of a huge result. Well, Lyndon Rush looking very happy with that, as you might expect. Lots of green of Saxony and of a local sponsor here that's supplying those rattles. Chris Spring and the guys down the bottom helping with the sled, but from start to finish, both runs were absolutely top draw from Lyndon Rush and Jesse Lumsden.
They definitely were. Two really great starts, you know, closer than we've ever seen to the Latvians in the starts from both of these guys, and two really, really great, strong drives from Lyndon. Consistency at its finest.
Easy for you to say. Well, he did what you did yesterday, which was show the field a clean pair of heels. And how much did you win by yesterday? 48?
48.
And
Lyndon
he wins by 43?
Okay. Close.
So you still have bragging rights, okay?
No, we're going to help each other.
Well, and there you go. And that's what this whole team ethos is about. You get a big group of athletes and you spur each other on. Lyndon Rush and Jesse Lumsden claim win number 2 of the season. Oskars Malbardis looked so close in Heat 1, couldn't hold on in Heat 2. And Francesco Friedrich rounds out the podium for Germany, ahead of Alexander Zubkov, Thomas Florschutz and Mani Mahata. Steve Holcomb, 8th position. That's his most disappointing result of the season in the two-man. Holcomb already with 3 race wins here. And a tie for 19th place, John Jackson and Patrice Sabel of Monaco, the tail of this top 20 field. Wow, well, look, the snow had almost finished by the end of the run, and it's back again. We'll hear from our top 3, find out what they thought of this race in Königssee. Flags of nations flying here in Berchtesgaden, Bavaria at the Königssee track at the end of a fantastically exciting two-man bobsleigh race. Round 7 of the Wiesmann FIBT World Cup. And Lyndon Rush, who claimed the lead of the World Cup rankings last week in Altenburg with a 4th place finish, cements himself on top of the pile with a win here. Manny Mahata, Steve Holcomb, Oskars Melbardis giving chase. But could Canadian Lyndon Rush claim the Crystal Globe at the end of the season? Only time will tell. At the moment, though, he is on a rich vein of form. Kaylee Humphries, the Olympic champion, sitting alongside me. From start to finish in both runs, Jessie Lumsden, Lyndon Rush just produced an absolutely great pair of runs.
They really did. Consistency at its finest. Great starts from both of these guys. They really gave it everything. Lyndon drove this track exceptionally well. No issues anywhere that I could see. Consistently, first run, second run, didn't matter with the snow. I mean, he did his job here today, and you saw it, and he deserved this one.
You see how happy Jessie Lumsden was, and Lyndon Rush as well. We'll hear from them in just a second. Let's get down there then. They're with John Morgan.
Down here at the flower ceremony, huge crowd on hand, and a very experienced bobsleigh crowd here in the center of Bavaria and Königssee. Everyone experience what people really know the sport here in Bavaria. Here the flowers are being presented by Axel Burkhardt, the head of global sports marketing for Adidas. All those shoes you see everybody wearing, those special high-tech shoes. And now the flowers being presented to our winning team from Canada. Jessie Lumsden, the brakeman. Lyndon Rush, their 2nd gold medal of the season. Rush did it in La Plagne. And now into the interviews. We'll step in with our bronze medal team. Germany #2, Francesco. Hey, 2 good runs. You must be happy here.
Yes, I'm very happy on this track to get 2 very good runs, and so we can land on place 3.
Congratulations, good start too, Gino. Now over to the second place team. Oscars, Dimensions, you guys were a little problem in the start, the second run.
Jā, nu, kā vienmēr atrodas otrā braucienā kāds bērnišķīgs kļūdas un nezinu, ka šoreiz bija par vainu braukšu mājās secināšu, bet nu paldies Dievam, kad izdevās nobraukt salīdzinoši labu braucienu un neatkritām atpakaļ pāris vietas.
You know, he made some problems there, but he corrected and silver medal. Good starts. Now, Canada, wow. You guys, the Canadian girls did pretty good yesterday, and you guys smoked the field today by about 3,500, so I think even more than that. Were you surprised at the times when you got to the bottom?
Yeah, I guess this is a short track. You kind of expect the times to be really close, you know what I mean? Like these shorter tracks, usually the margins are really tight, so we had things really set up well, and we were able to sort of dig deep on that second run. This idiot hurt himself on the first run jumping in the sled. He jumped, on the back of the ridge. He jumped on the back and hurt his back. So the second run, it was a hard hat run, and he dug deep, and he gave me the best he had, and it was good enough.
Obviously, this idiot did pretty good for you, too. Congratulations, Canada, everybody.
Well, Jesse Lamson calls a pretty good race as well when he joins us here in the booth. Congratulations to him and Lyndon Rush. Not bad for idiots, huh? Okay, way to go, Canada. Well, my thanks too to Kaylee Humphries. Kaylee, 2 great races, and we've got the 4-man in prospect as well tomorrow. Looking forward to that already.
I am. I'm really excited for 4-man. 4-man's always fun, especially in the starts, where everything comes down to hundredths of a second and really close racing. So it should be a lot of fun tomorrow.
Huge sleds, tiny tracks, lots of action. Join Kaylee Humphries and me, Martin Haven, for the 4-man race here, round 7 of the Wiesmann FIBT World Cup, and catch up with all the action on FIBT.com.